Becky Streepy from Glue and Glitter, and today we are going to make my amazingly easy, ridiculously delicious vegan quiche. What I love about a quiche is that it is easy to make, but it doesn't seem like it was easy to make to someone who doesn't know how to make a quiche. And so you could serve this for like a nice brunch or even a holiday meal or a date night. And you can even make it up to a day or two ahead because it tastes just as good the next day. You can either serve it cold or let it come to room temperature if you prefer it that way. The other thing I love about a quiche recipe is that it's super flexible. You'll see in the video that I'm doing a broccoli quiche with green onions, but if broccoli's not your jam, then don't put broccoli in your quiche. You can use any combination of veggies. You can even add things like vegan bacon, vegan cheese shreds, just as long as you have between 3.5 and 4 cups of cooked goods. Except for tomatoes, you don't need to cook the tomatoes for your quiche. All right, y'all, so let's make some quiche. I'm going to walk you through how I made this broccoli and green onion quiche. So if you want to do my recipe exactly, you can, but like I said before, feel free to mix things up. You start with 3 cups of broccoli florets, and you want the florets to be about this big. You want them to be basically like bite-sized pieces. Put those into a microwave-safe bowl. You can also steam these on the stovetop or saute them if you don't do microwaves, but I cooked mine in the microwave because it's very quick. Add a couple tablespoons of water to your bowl and microwave for about 3.5 minutes until those florets are fork tender, and then drain off the excess water. Then you'll add a 1/2 cup of chopped green onions and mix those together. The warm broccoli is going to wilt those onions a little bit, and because green onions are so soft, you don't need to cook them any more than that. So let's set those aside for a minute and we'll prepare the batter. Now, like I mentioned, this is a vegan quiche, so there's no egg. We're replacing the egg in this recipe with extra firm tofu. So you need a block of extra firm tofu and just break it up into pieces that are small enough to fit into your blender. No need to chop. From there, add a little bit of olive oil. That's going to give this quiche the richness and creaminess that you would get from cream and eggs without any cream and eggs. Add a little bit of soy sauce for some salty goodness and to add a little bit of moisture. Then a teaspoon or 2 of Italian seasoning. You can also mix up the seasonings, so feel free to experiment here and use whatever dried or even fresh seasonings you like. The last thing that you need to add to the blender is 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast. The nutritional yeast is going to give this a little bit of a cheesy flavor. It also helps bind the quiche by thickening up the mixture. So now it's time to blend. As you can see, I'm using one of those upside down blenders. You can really use any blender you like. I just prefer this for quiche because then the filling doesn't end up at the bottom near the blade. You lose less of the goods that way. Puree the filling until it is nice and creamy and smooth. You want a thick but pourable batter. And as you can see here, after the first round of blending, that is not where we're at all. That looks a little bit creamy on top, but if you turn it a little so you can see the sides, you'll notice that some of the tofu wasn't even blended yet, and that's where the vegan milk comes in. I'm using soy milk here, but you could also use oat or almond. Pretty much any vegan milk will do the trick here. And you'll add that just a tablespoon or 2 at a time. So add a tablespoon or 2, blend again, check the thickness, and then you can keep adding and blending until it reaches that thick but pourable consistency that you're looking for. It really depends on your blender. If you're using a high-speed blender, you'll need between 2 and 4 tablespoons of liquid. If you're using a regular blender though, you might need that full 1/2 cup. Now that you have a nice creamy batter, it is time to put it all together. So grab yourself a pie crust. I'm using a frozen vegan pie crust. Don't panic. You don't have to go to a special store to get a frozen vegan pie crust. The pie crusts in the freezer section at pretty much any grocery store tend to be vegan. Check the ingredients to make sure that there's no egg or dairy in there, but even like the store brand or like pretty common brands tend to be animal product free. You can also, of course, make a pie crust from scratch if that's more your thing, but if you know me, you know that I like things to be easy, so frozen pie crusts all the way. So to start filling the crust, you're going to add that broccoli and onion mixture and just kind of dump it right into the pie crust and then give the pan a little shake. You want to get the broccoli and onions distributed evenly throughout the quiche. You can even get in there with your hands if you need to and move some onions and broccoli around to get things pretty evenly distributed. Now it's time to pour on the batter. So as you can see, when you're pouring it, it kind of comes out and moves around, but it's not so thin that it's filling the whole pan right away. You have to use a spoon to smooth it down. And you want to use that spoon to get the batter distributed throughout the whole pie pan so it's covering all of the filling. And then you're going to use my favorite trick to get a flat-ish top on your quiche. And that is to just pick up the pie pan and drop it on the table. Not from a great height, just a couple of inches will do it, but just kind of slam it on the table a few times and that will straighten out the top of the quiche just enough. You don't want the top to be perfect. I think that messiness makes it a little bit pretty, but do know it's not going to flatten out anymore during baking. Every wave and bump that you see on the top is pretty much going to be there when you pull it out of the oven. Pop that quiche right into the oven at 350 for half an hour. And when you pull it out, you're going to want to let it cool for at least 20 minutes. If you're making this in advance, of course, you can just stick it right in the fridge and let it cool until you're ready to serve it, but at least 20 minutes of cooling time because that filling is going to be very soft when it first comes out of the oven. You need to give the tofu time to set up before you slice into it or your quiche is going to be a little runny and messy. I hope that I've answered all of your questions in this video. If you have any other questions about this recipe, feel free to drop a comment below and don't forget to rate and subscribe. Happy cooking!